Hello and welcome to A Game of Two Halves, a brand new football podcast for zipsportsmedia.com. I'm your host Sean Watson. You may remember me from Touchline, a previous podcast for zipsportsmedia.com. And I've got a brand new co-host sat alongside me. He's agreed to do this show with me for the foreseeable for his sins. Good friend of mine, Mr. Kieron Dobson. Kieron, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks Sean. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on the show. If you would, Kieron, just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, why you wanted to get involved in this show, and your background, if you would.
Will do. So, obviously worked with Sean for quite a long time.
For his sins.
Yeah, used to argue quite a lot about football. Sean had the podcast, I listened to it, I liked it. Sean suggested one day I join the show or have a go on it. Here we are now.
18 months later.
18 months later.
It needs to be added.
Yeah, he asked me quite a lot.
Yeah.
I resisted quite a lot, but here I am. But yeah, I'm a little breakdown about me. So I'm a United fan. I grew up in Lancashire and Merseyside, so a lot of my arguments with Sean have been tainted because I'm a United fan who hates Liverpool, he's a United fan who hates City. So yeah, that's me basically.
That's true. There's a golden rule that sometimes says that journalists aren't supposed to give away who they support.
Yeah.
You've just given that away. So yes, massive Man United fan, not ashamed to say it. Just a little bit on the premise of this show. So this is called A Game of Two Halves, and that's what we intend to make it. A show of two halves, if you want. The first half of the show is going to be generally based around Manchester United and how they're doing and the current state of affairs and things like that. But halfway into the show, we're going to change. We're just going to change the topic really and discuss a topic that we've pre-agreed. But it can be anything. It can be even as Man United fans, it can go from Liverpool's Champions League victory in Istanbul that we've spoken about rather bitterly. But it could be something like that, or it could be Arsenal's invincible season, or just a topic of choice that we're going to sort of delve into and go a little bit in depth on and just discuss that and give you our thoughts. So if that's something you're interested in, please come back and listen to this show. This week's show is actually the first episode. We're going to talk about football pundits, the art of punditry. Who's the best, who's the worst, who do you like, who do you don't, who does it well, who doesn't. So that's what we've got coming up for you in the second half. But the first half of the show, as I said, is going to be centred around Manchester United. Kieron, it's been an indifferent start to the season at best, you'd say. There's been ups, there's been downs, mainly downs. Give us your summary of the first half a dozen games and the first 3 months of the season.
So just for a bit more context, the reason we've done Game of Two Halves is because we did dummy run the week after we got beat by Brighton, and we're trying to do a balanced Premier League football podcast, and we did an hour of arguing about Manchester United. So it's just it's better to accept that we need to dedicate quite a lot of time to how United are doing that week. So things probably haven't changed that much since we did that podcast, to be honest, because we lost to Brighton 3-2, I think. Obviously, we were pretty downbeat about that. We both walked away thinking different things. You thought some things about certain players, and I thought some things about certain players. But
I'm sure we'll cover it.
We definitely will, because you've got a bit of humble pie.
Apparently so, yeah, we'll see, but apparently so.
Yeah, but obviously a lot of things have happened since then. We're pretty good in the Champions League at this point, which I probably wouldn't have predicted if I'd have seen the group at the time.
Quite a nice surprise, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Juve game. But by and large, we've pretty much stayed where we were in the Premier League. The only thing I would say in amongst all that is that, as bad as the results have been, we're starting to see a few glimmers of hope and rays of light, I think. But I would say despite Mourinho rather than because of, which is probably something I alluded to at the time.
You did?
Yeah.
Never been Mourinho's biggest fan, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, neither of us, I don't think, to be fair, either have been his biggest fan. But obviously after the Brighton game, I'm going back to that because obviously at that point, we're 3 games in, I think, and it looked so bleak at that. I couldn't have seen anything going right. There's a lot of players I like in that squad that weren't. I just don't think were being utilised at that point in time. And I think as time's gone by, again, the results from Premier League haven't changed much, but we've seen Martial come into a hot streak in terms of goals. I argue that he pretty much always looks the same on the pitch in terms of form. I just think, obviously, this last month or so, or maybe 2 now, he's been scoring. I think he's got 5 games with goals in. So I think there's been other things too. I think straight after that Brighton game, we were talking about the defence a lot. Obviously, Bayern, Lindelof. We're not covered in glory, but I think we've seen Lindelof since then sort of show that there's reasons to be hopeful about the future with him. I mean, I wouldn't so far away from being in a position where you can say it looks like he's going to be a success, but
we've seen some life out of him though, haven't we?
Yeah.
I think the Juve performance at Old Trafford where we lost 1-0.
Yeah, he shone in that. Yeah,
that was his best game in a United shirt, in my opinion. So
I think, to be fair with Lindelof, I said at the time, I think again after the Brighton game, I thought he was worse than Bailly in that game, and of course Mourinho thought Bailly was worse, and I don't think Bailly's played since.
We've not seen much of him, have we?
But I think with Lindelof, I just think the way the Premier League works, I think defenders now, when they jump from a foreign league straight into the Premier League, I think you've got to give them just a bit more time, because I think if we look at some of the best Premier League defenders at this point over the years, if they've come from the Premier League, they've had time to bed themselves in. I mean, you look at Terry or Ferdinand. Chelsea weren't tearing the league apart when Terry was young. Rio started off at West Ham, went to Leeds, got the move, and I think even if you look now, you've got Van Dijk, who had a nice move over to Scotland. I'd say the SPL is not too different from the Premier League in terms of the intensity and the aggression, and I think he comes to Southampton, he gets time to develop there. I think, to be fair to Lindelof, I think he looks better in these European games because that's the kind of football he's used to playing. I watched him play for Sweden against Italy in a game they needed to keep a clean sheet, or they needed to defend. Maybe Italy was 1-1 or something, but he needs to put in a shift, and he put in a shift. He looked solid, and I've always thought that there's something in him. I just think it's worth giving him time, and I think at this point it's fair to say he's starting to show potential.
Yeah, I would agree. And the question I always posed about Lindelof was, why have we bought him? What attributes does he have? He's not quick, he's not particularly powerful, he doesn't read the game that well. This is obviously prior to what we've seen in the last month or so, but I think we're starting to see a little bit of a glimmer of hope with Lindelof now.
I think, you buy him because he's a young player, he's done well in Portugal, he's done well internationally, and I think he's physical. I wouldn't say he's an athlete. He's not the fastest, and but I think he could complement Bailly quite well if they were given a chance to play together. And I think the other thing about Lindelof, which probably goes under the radar a bit, because I don't think he gets much of a chance, but he can pass quite well, and I do think, particularly if United are ever going to work under Mourinho, that's going to be pretty important, because we've got to find a way of getting out of the defence
100%.
Better than we currently do. And again, that's improved too. After the Brighton game, we argued about the output from Pogba, but I made the argument that I think Pogba sometimes has to drop too deep because we haven't got a defence that can bring the ball out of our own half, whereas I think if we are going to be successful, we need players like Lindelof who potentially can play that pass that is a bit more aggressive and positive.
Yeah, positive. Yeah, like you look at any other team in the league, really top 4 or 5, and the defence can all play with the ball. They can all bring it out of defence. John Stones is good at it for City, so is Laporte. You've got David Lewis for Chelsea. Van Dijk and Robertson, and you don't see that at United. There's not many players that we've got at the back. Smalling, Jones, Bailly. Lindelof a little bit now is showing signs of it, but they can't really play the ball out. And like you say, Pogba does have to sacrifice his position in the midfield to come and dig that ball out, doesn't he?
Yeah, I also think too, though, that you've got to have the ball to play sometimes too. And I think that, again, I'm particularly defensive of Bailly because I think that...
Probably more defensive than he is, to be honest.
I think Bailly's a really good defender. I think that, considering his age, and again, the fact that he came to the Premier League at a young age with relatively low experience, I think he only had like a year or two playing Villarreal. He's shown that he can pass. He's shown that he can control the ball. I remember him doing a roulette against someone last year in a big game. He's got quality on the ball and he's got quality off it. And I think I argued with you again. I'm going back to that Dummy Run podcast we did, but defenders now, there aren't that many where you're going to think they don't make mistakes. And at the time, I'd have probably said, you've got Van Dijk, but then Van Dijk in the last minute against City hacks out, I can't remember who it was, but he takes someone out, gives away a penalty.
Sane, wasn't it?
If Bailly did that, he'd been back page. But I just think, the way it is now, you've just got to accept modern game. You've got to accept that your defender's going to make a few mistakes. And again, going back to my earlier point, I think that, I saw a few games last year where we played a back five, and the back three were being asked to try and play balls. And I think it was at home to Spurs. I was actually behind the goal. Bailly was trying to play the ball out, and he kept playing these floated, curling passes in behind, sort of in between Spurs lines, trying to aim in between sort of our right winger and Lukaku. And he just kept bouncing back, and people around me were slagging him off, saying stop playing that ball. But he's obviously been told to play that ball, and I think if I'm him, I'm looking at Lukaku thinking, help me out.
He's got lead in his boots, hasn't he?
Yeah, we'll probably come on to him. But I just think, a lot of these players that I actually think I've got quite a lot of hope for at United probably just haven't had the opportunity to show what they can do. And I think a perfect example of that would be Martial, who, we've argued about him over the years now. But I think, not to say that you've never rated Martial, but we've argued about the quality of his play.
Yeah, the output. It's not the potential. We both agree on the potential.
But this is a point we disagree on. I say that his output for his age in a position which I don't think I prefer him as a striker. I know from wherever I've seen interviews and stuff, he says he prefers to come off the left. But I think even with that, we saw on the left and at 9 for Van Gaal, he's shown ridiculous quality. I think on the left for Mourinho is so much different for left under Van Gaal, because I always say this to you, but I mean, in Martial's first year, I think he got 4 goals under Mourinho in not many minutes, a lot of them from the bench. And basically the task Mourinho was giving him is to hold his run, stretch the defence, stay wide, and then curl it into the back post to Lukaku. And I think the other thing as well is I've always said to you that I think this year what's big for Martial is that Luke Shaw can overlap and underlap. The last 2 years we've had Ashley Young at left back for the most part. He's a right footer, and I do think it matters in terms of the dimension of the pitch that we've got a defender now that can go on the outside and stretch the pitch so that it commits the defender. And so again, over the last few years, I've seen teams double up on Martial. It's just no good for him. If he's got to run past 2, he can run past 2 defenders, but it's low percentage, isn't it? And I think this year we've seen much more from him, because you've got Luke Shaw overlapping or underlapping. You've got Pogba now running out to the left so that Martial can come in. We've seen goals come from that. I just think that, if we'd have played to these strengths last year, I don't think we would have got, obviously, 5 goals in 5 games or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm not saying we should expect that, but I think, last year, if we'd have given him these opportunities, I'm convinced that he would have. I mean, we did at the start of last season. He was our most productive outfield player at the age of, 21 at the time. Yeah. We signed Sanchez, and neither of them have scored since February. I think past February, neither of them scored. So it completely rocked him. And then the year before, it was the same thing. I just think we've seen so much talent. Again, I go back. I've got my favourites, obviously, in Martial, and I really like Bailly, and I really like Pogba. Obviously, I like players that are aggressive and try and take the game. I just think in the modern era, that's what you need. But we've got a manager that almost sees no value in that until he's forced into it, and he's been forced into it now. And if the results there. And lastly, I would just say as well, this run for Martial has come at a time when Lukaku's not been starting. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think Lukaku. Rashford hasn't had, in terms of scoring goals, a great period playing centre forward, but I think what he's done is he's running behind defenders. It makes it so much easier for our defence to connect to the midfield to connect to the attack, when you've got an attacker that's actually asking questions of the centre backs.
And if nothing else, it frees up space for the players to get on the ball in the midfield, doesn't it? So, you set the transition up nicely and then moved away just slightly. So points off. But you did mention Jose Mourinho there. I think it's safe to say that the United fans are quite torn over Mourinho at the minute. I
think always have been. He's a polarising guy, isn't he?
He is a polarising manager, there's no doubt about it. I think he's won a lot of fans back over the past month, I'd say. with his performances off the pitch more than what we've seen on the pitch, but particularly the ear cupping at the Juventus away, where United snatched 2 late goals in typical United style, or what has been United style in years gone by. And he gave it the big one in front of the Juventus fans. Got a lot of stick for it, but he sort of, it was a victory for Mourinho, and I was pleased for him on that night. But give us your assessment of Mourinho. Give us a 2-minute nutshell of your opinion on Mourinho.
So yeah, I mean with Mourinho, 2 minutes. Obviously, massively successful manager. He's done things a certain way and he's had varying success wherever he's gone, but by and large he's won trophies. But I mean, at United, we knew what we were getting when we got him. He was a manager, like you say, it's going to get you, or give you a chance to win trophies. And I mean, his defenders will say he's done that with the Europa League and League Cup. But I mean, for me, it's been a pretty miserable few years, and I feel like anything I have enjoyed about United the last few years has been in spite of him. Like I said, I mean, go to Martial just recently. It's just can go back over the years, it get depressing, but. There is a side to him, like you allude to, that he does endear himself to fans, and like you said, it's been with what he's done off the pitch really more than anything. The Burnley away this year, we won comfortably and we won well. He made a point of going over to the fans and celebrating them and clapping with them and stuff like that, and he knows what he's doing. And again, fair enough, like at the end of the day, you want to see your manager doing that, but I want to see my manager going toe-to-toe with the big teams and putting us in a position to win and to do well in the Premier League and the Champions League, and that's not what he's done for us. To be fair, he took over us when we weren't at a good point. I know we won the FA Cup, we were outside the Champions League. He's brought in a lot of good players that I don't know would have been able to get without him. And he's certainly changed, I think, the dressing room too. I think there is a bit more steel there, but has it been a good few years? I couldn't say, and that's where I am with him.
It hasn't. It hasn't.
No.
I think we mentioned on the like you said, the dummy run that we did, that winning the Europa League was nothing more than a path to the Champions League for us, as spoiled United fans, which admittedly is what we are.
Yeah.
That's all it was. The Europa League trophy doesn't mean much to somebody who's used to winning Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues.
Yeah.
As spoiled as that is, as entitled as that is, that's the truth.
Yeah. I think, again, it's difficult because I can see where people are coming from when they defend him and talk about, it didn't look good for us. We beat Palace in the final to win the FA Cup. I mean, we had quite a nice run going into that, won that trophy, and, a big game at Wembley, you want to be playing a team like Palace and not one of the big hitters. And again, the squad was not in a place going forward where you would have said we're guaranteed success in the near future. We had a good. I liked the squad; it was good and young, and there was a lot of potential going forward. But I wouldn't have said that in the next few years we'd have been competing in the Champions League or anything. So I mean, I give him his due. He's got us into the Champions League, and he got us to finish second last year. But I mean, it's just come at such a cost for me. I mean, it's just not been fun at any point. And the most fun we've had has been the last few weeks, and this is, I think, what it comes down to for me. It's been in spite of him. I think if Lukaku was fit, he'd have played in a lot of the last 100%. Few games where we've won narrowly as well against, in some cases. Take the Juve game out of the equation. Who's the best team we've beat?
We haven't.
No, so we narrowly beat Newcastle, who hadn't won at that point.
Did that save his job? Did that 3-2 save his job?
Yeah, probably.
Do you think he would have gone? Because there was a lot of talk that he was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I thought at the start of the season, I said to you that I thought he wouldn't make it past October. I just had the general vibe. He was getting his excuses ready, it felt like, saying that he hadn't got the defenders and the players he wanted. He was critical of some of our better players, and I thought he was setting himself up so that when he went, he was lining himself up for the next job. That's what he does. But you've got to say, to be fair to him, he stuck it out. I don't know why, but he stuck it out. He's still in now, and the results have improved. The performances haven't, though, for me. all these games we were coming back. Again, we've never really taken the game by the scruff of the neck. We're coming into these games where we go down a goal or two and then we come back. So he's not setting the team up right. And maybe fair play at half time, he's saying the right things. But I mean, why can't we have a manager that's getting the best out of the players that we've got now? And again, this is not me saying that we should be going toe to toe with City or even Liverpool at this point. Liverpool have got a squad miles ahead of ours. City even more.
Yeah, it's not even worth having the conversation.
That's not what I'm saying, but I mean, Sarri's coming at Chelsea and almost immediately turned things around, and I don't think our squad's worse than theirs. I think ours is better than theirs, and he's got them. They're unbeaten, I think, at this point, playing good, attractive football. Like, even look at Arsenal. They've been a mess for years, and Emery, they've had a tough run. They've had a much tougher start to the season than us. At this point, they're ahead of us. And again, I think he's doing less with more, he's doing more with less. And I don't know. Why can't we have a manager that I enjoy watching the football week in, week out, that I don't dislike off the pitch, where he's criticising players openly and he's defending the players that I think should come under some scrutiny.
So speaking of the players, then I've written in my notes. Which players would you sell? Which players would you keep? Now, without going through every player in the entire squad, we'll look at sort of the main 11 or 14 or however many players generally week in, week out. De Gea's nailed on. You've got to keep hold of him.
Yeah.
Luke Shaw, I'd say we keep him.
Yeah.
100%. Centre backs, the main four really: Smalling, Jones, Bailly, Lindelof. Who do you keep?
Straight down the line for me, Smalling, Jones. I don't dislike either of them. They're at an age now where they're not good enough, and I don't know what. I can't anticipate. They're not going to get any better, are they? At this point, I don't think so.
How long have they played for us now? 7-8 years.
Yeah, and they both work hard. They both want to do well. They're just not good enough, and I haven't got a bad feeling against either of them. But I've seen enough. That's how I feel. I think by Lindelof, I think there's quite a lot of hope there for me. I think they could be a really good centre back partnership if they were given a chance. I appreciate they both want to play right centre back, if you believe what you're told, but I don't think that's unfixable. I think they're both smart. Particularly Lindelof, I think he's smart enough to shift across to left centre back. I think they just need games together, and I think Mourinho, to be fair, so one thing you say about him is he gets his defences, he picks his defence, he sticks with it, and we saw in his first year we had Bailly and Blint, and he stuck by them, and we lost 2 on City, and it all sort of went out the window. But until that game, we looked good. That was a defence that looked strong.
We were matching City game to game, weren't we?
And I just don't know that it's worth sticking with to dropping. Bailly's been dropped after the Brighton game, not come back in. There's no doubt in my mind he is a better player and a better asset to Manchester United than Chris Smalling. Chris Smalling's come in, and the results have improved, and there's no getting around it. But we can't look at it. You've got to look at the bigger picture. I've seen enough evidence that Smalling's not going to be a Premier League winning defender. You should move on for me.
Fair enough. Right back, we're still flirting with Valencia. I know he's injured at the minute, but I think his time's been and gone, in all honesty. Yeah. Again, you're looking there at somebody like Dalot to come in, probably long term. We've not seen much of him since young boys away, but probably one for the future. It
was the League Cup game against Derby. It was his last game. He's played since. I think he's had a knock, but I mean, again, he looked good. It's a small sample size, not get carried away, but he looked like he's a talent. So there's hope for him. I think you got to talk about Ashley Young as well.
Yes, Ashley Young. I think he's had his time as well.
Yeah, he's definitely not good enough. The thing I'll say about Ashley Young,
he's done okay.
I've slated him in the past. And there's been numerous times I've ran him out the door, but he's another one where he's sort of stuck at it. And why wouldn't he? He's at United. It's not going to get any better, but he does show something. He does
a little bit of heart.
Yeah, he's got character. And the other thing I'll say is he will do a job. There have been big games where Ashley Young's done a job for us. Valencia, I'm done with him again. He's never been a right back for me. I remember Moyes tried him out. I saw enough then. He's definitely not proved me wrong. I know he had a year where if you ask fans, they say he was a consideration for player of the year, but he just definitely was.
People were calling him the best fullback in the league, and I thought that was a bit of a travesty.
It's ridiculous.
It's an insult, really, for a failed winger to be the best fullback in the league. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, no, he's poor.
Midfield, your midfield three at this point is starting to look like Pogba, Matic, and who's the third?
Herrera at the minute.
Herrera's in, yes. Herrera's at the minute. So, but obviously you've got Fellaini, Fred,
Pereira,
and McTominay. They 7, one matter. Who's never really been played in the middle under a United manager, which again
sad, but
just a missed opportunity, I think. But out of those 7, we don't need to go through them all. Tell me you'd keep.
So obviously you keep Pogba, and you give him everything. Keep Herrera. I think that
really
he had a bad year last year.
I think he's had a few bad years.
He was really bad last year, and he's had bad games. This year he came on, did really good job against Chelsea, and then there was a game more recently.
It was the derby, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, and he was really poor. And there's no doubt in my mind that he's not going to be a starter again in a Premier League winning team. But I definitely don't think he's bad enough that we can't stick with him for now. I think last year there was the match bribing thing going on, wasn't there? From his time at Bilbao, and I think that sort of probably paid him because I think he was being summoned to court and potentially jail time. So I think it's fair to say that probably would have affected his performance. I think Matic has had a really poor start to the season.
Yeah, so do I.
And I think
it's strange that actually because I rate Matic as well.
Yeah, and we talked about at the start of this again. We said this at the start of the year that we were both surprised. Like, you weren't. You were delighted when we got him. I wasn't a big fan. I thought we were overspending on a player at his age, he did have a bad year. Might not have been the year we signed, it might have been the year before, but he started to look a bit past it to me. Last year he was great, I thought, particularly at the start. I think this year, there's a case to be made that he's played too much football because he was at the World Cup. I think he played nearly every game for us last year.
Oh, he will have done, yeah.
And this year again, he's played in every game. He's 90 minutes every game too, apart from when he got sent off at Watford. He needs a rest, and that's if he's not done. I mean, he's 30 now. You wouldn't, going 3 years into the future, you certainly won't be in consideration. And Pereira, I'd like to think there's a player in there, but I mean, he had a little run at the start, but he's not featured since. And I think
that was because of a few tired legs at the beginning of the season, wasn't it? I don't think he's in Mourinho's plans.
Definitely not in Mourinho's plans. I think McTominay probably is, but I'd quite happily see him go.
Yeah, there's just nothing much happening, is there really?
And Fred, I think there's conversations to be had about Fred. I think that he's definitely, the general narrative is that he's been poor, and I think it's fair to say, I mean, in terms of his output on the pitch. I mean, he got a goal against Wolves, but he's had bad games. But I think he's shown glimpses of potential. I do think there's potential.
He deserves time as well.
Yeah,
he's a new player.
He's come from Ukraine.
It's a different league, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm willing to give him a chance. I do think that there's some. He's shown glimpses of what he could potentially do. He's just not done it yet. So I think you give him time.
Okay, so front 4 or 5, if you're including Mata in that conversation. 6. Sorry, I've just done my maths wrong. 6. So Lukaku, we mentioned him earlier on. We were sceptical when we bought him for all that money. I know a player shouldn't be judged off the transfer fee. That's not their fault, but he's not really lived up. He scored the goals last season, and his record's better than probably he is, in my opinion.
I don't think he scored the goals. He scored goals last year.
Did he get 20 odd goals
in all comps? But I mean, he scored 18 in the Premier League. But it's not. Yeah, but if you're going to compete for the Premier League, you need to have one of the top scorers. That 8-goal gap is massive. That's
24 points.
Yeah, he's not good enough. We earned the price. He's just not good enough.
Yeah,
that's
I think
all there
his
is
first
to
touch
it.
is borderline abysmal.
And I'll say, I went into last year angry we'd signed him. And I have to say, as the year went on, I started to come round to the guy. He put in some, particularly as the season went on, I thought he got in better shape. The game against Chelsea, I thought he actually started, particularly again towards the end of last year, down that right flank, he was cutting in quite well. He was putting in nice crosses.
Oh yeah, the assist for the winning goal in that game was it?
Yeah. He's definitely. he definitely improved at the end of last year. And again, it could just be he's played too much football, but he's got worse, which is what's worrying because it could be a confidence thing, but it's undeniable.
I think he's a confidence player. I don't think that's up for debate.
But bottom line for me, it doesn't matter. He's just not good enough.
Okay, moving on from Lukaku.
I want to throw Fellaini in this category because we missed him out in midfield. He's another player.
Fellaini, yeah, we did.
He'll do a job and he works hard. And everyone that's Giggs has said good things about him. Van Gaal said good things about him. Obviously, Mourinho stands by him all the time. He's obviously works hard.
He's an impact player, isn't he? He's not a starter.
Yeah, if he's happy coming off the bench and just being a general squad player, I'm happy for him to stay. But I've got to say, I don't want him ever starting games for United.
And not in the midfield.
Yeah, definitely not.
He's a player you put on when you're chasing a game.
Yeah,
and you put him up front, and that's his
you've
use.
tried everything else and it's not working. Yeah. You can't break down the door. Yeah, and I think as well, there's certain times when Van Gaal deployed him and Mourinho to some respect where if a team was going to press us and we clearly didn't have the quality in the team to pass through, and he would just pump De Gea would just go straight to him. Yeah, and it did work, and there are a few games where that worked that well. But I mean, unless we're using him for like a sort of special situations, he shouldn't be starting for United.
Yeah, it's like City putting David James up front that time. That's his use for us, in my opinion.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the wide players because Mourinho's, he's going to start Lukaku when he's fit, so that's not up for debate really. Yeah. You've got 4 wide players really. Martial, we've touched on. Marcus Rashford, Juan Mata, Jesse Lingard, Alexis Sanchez. 5.
You nearly forgot him, yeah.
Back to maths class for me. Start on Sanchez. He's the most high profile, and he's come under a lot of scrutiny in the year he's had. Rightfully so. He's not produced the goods. But there was one performance actually that I saw, and it was the first half against Juventus away.
Yeah.
Where Sanchez, I think he played his best game for United so far. Yeah. He looked fit. He looked quick. He looked buzzing around the field, and I was impressed. And all I could think of was, where's that been for the past year? So
it's been on the left wing, hasn't it?
Yeah, but
I know that's where he played for Arsenal, but Arsenal played a more aggressive style of football. It just so happens to be really bad at defending.
But I think regardless of position, I just thought he looked a lot more enthusiastic. His touch was on.
You probably do though if you're getting in higher up the pitch and you want to score goals, though, don't you?
But didn't he play left wing for Barcelona? He didn't play that.
And a mix of the right. Yeah, but we're talking about playing for Barcelona and playing for this Mourinho United team. I can't think anyone would pick to choose out wide for a Mourinho team. I just can't. I know Hazard came out recently, said nice things about Mourinho, but
it's easy for him to say that now. He's gone.
Yeah, and it's easy to forget that he had a really bad year the year after he won the title.
Yeah, if you believe the reports, Hazard was probably one of the main reasons Mourinho left that job at Chelsea. So
selective memory for me.
Yeah, of course it is.
Sanchez, I think for me, I was all over the transfer just because it meant Mkhitaryan was going out the door for me.
And I was pleased that they nicked him off City as well, which is petty, but that's how my mind works.
He's a quality player, but he's another player. He played too many games. He's 29, going on 30 now.
His legs look to have just run out of steam.
Yeah, I do think he's lost a burst of pace, but I do think that, considering our options up front, I'd potentially keep him around for a year or two till we can get like a real high-profile big hitter.
You wouldn't have thought Alexis Sanchez is a stopgap, but that's
that is how I look at him, though. He's clearly, he's not going to be. It was a year he was top scorer and assister or something like that. Not too long. It was the year before last. He's never going to hit that level again. But he could do a job for us, and he's going to come at a high price now. But we're stuck with him, aren't we?
Yeah.
Martial is the past, present, and future as far as I'm concerned. You just give him whatever position he wants. He's a talent, and we'd be stupid to mess about with him.
Yeah, because you just know if we do let him go, he'll go to another top club and completely rip it up for them. So, Lingard, I know you're a fan of Lingard. I've warmed to him over the past 2 years.
Glad to see.
His off-the-field antics will never impress me. Do you call it a diss rap? That he brought out this week I saw about 5 seconds of it, and that was the end. But
he can do what he wants. I like that the younger fan base now. He's engaging towards them. All young people now are on Instagram and stuff like that. I'm saying that like I'm 60, but people are.
Fair, we both are,
and that's the modern fan now. And I just think I don't know. He just seems to be enjoying life, and he does a job for us. He's putting big performances, big games. I don't know why anyone would criticise him. I like him.
We're not going to go too much into the social media and off the field antics.
That can be another day.
Exactly what I'm thinking. That's a whole other topic for a whole other day. So
Rashford's the last one.
Yes, Rashford, of course.
Quickly about Mata. Mata, just consistently for me over the years, he's never really been given an opportunity to show what he can really do, but he just consistently, whenever he's asked, does big things. Where his big games have been won with his set pieces or his overhead kicks at Anfield. I love Juan Mata. I was so glad when we got him. He's one of the players that everyone likes Juan Mata. When Chelsea were letting him go and we were getting a chance to get him, it's the best thing Moyes did for me. It's a shame it's not worked out.
But it's our fault because we've not built the team around him, which we should have done.
And maybe it could never really work because at his best at Chelsea he was a number 10 peeling off the right.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of room. There's not a lot of good teams now playing with an out-and-out number 10, and particularly a number 10 that doesn't have the athleticism to press, which is definitely a fair criticism of Juan Mata.
You once said Juan Mata was quietly quick. Now I'm calling you out on that.
My theory... I'm not a sports scientist, but my theory on Juan Mata is he's actually rapid, but he's just got tiny legs.
That was always Gary Neville's trouble. Fastest leg speed in the world on the overlap, Gary Neville. I've never seen somebody's legs move as quick as that.
Gary Neville's problem was that he was shit. I hate Gary Neville.
Okay, Gary Neville is coming up next. That is the half-time whistle. We're going to call it there for the United half of the show. So please pick up with us in the second half where we're going to go into the world of the football pundit. Join us then. Welcome back to a game of two halves. We're now into the second half of the show where we'll discuss a topic of choice. This week we are looking at the art of the football pundit. What we plan to do as this show grows, as we hope it will, is put these topics out to a poll so you guys can vote on what you want to hear us talk about. We'll get to that as the weeks and months go by. Hopefully we'll have gathered enough of a listenership at that point for you guys to get involved. But for now, we're in charge. So stick with us if you will. The first topic, as I said, is the football punditry. And we're just going to discuss the good and the bad, what we like, what we don't like, and what we think works. It's a funny one, a football pundit, because we've seen it evolve without really noticing it. The first pundit, really, it's been said, is Jimmy Hill, back in the 70s and 80s. He basically started the ball rolling, but as we've seen Sky Sports come into the football game in particular, buying the Premier League rights and so forth, we've seen the role of a pundit get more prominent as the years have gone by, to a point now where we're having Premier League panels with 4 pundits on all at once, rather than just your stock one analyst like the Andy Gray role or Alan Hansen was for the BBC back in the 90s and 2000s. So, Kieron, what importance do you place on the role of a football pundit for the viewers watching the product today?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, if you're not going to a pub now to watch a game, you're watching it at home, or even if you're watching it with a group of people at home, everyone's listening at half time, particularly in a big game, to hear a pundit say what they're thinking. So it's sort of like an affirmation, isn't it? And yeah, it's like you say, since Sky have got it, and it's become the show, hasn't it? The Premier League. It's like on Saturday, Sunday, you've got your big games. It is a whole sort of soap opera now, isn't it? You have your build up with the talk about the players and the drama and the week before and all that, and then there's a little bit of an argument and disagreement, and then
back in the day, back in the 60s and 70s, you had Kenneth Wilstonholme. He'd literally just say, "Welcome to match of the day. Here's the game. I'll tell you what's happening, and I'll end the show."
I didn't know that.
But it was literally, I'll call the action as I see it. I'll tell you what's happening. I won't tell you why. And to a lot of the viewers, all right, you can play football and educate yourself, but for the casual viewer, they're not very educated in terms of. Back then they weren't very educated because that wasn't what the coverage provided. It didn't provide an insight, it didn't provide analysis of why something happened. Mm-hmm. It just said what was happening. And that's what we've seen change. And I think particularly the catalyst to that was Andy Gray. and still is. You know, he works for, I think it's B in Sports now, but obviously when in the UK when he was working for Sky, he had his virtual reality machine. He had, I think it was called The Last Word on the Super Sunday, and he sort of changed the game really in terms of what the football pundit became, and he analysed various different things that happened in the game, and I think the beauty of Andy Gray, and I rated Andy Gray, and I think the Premier League and particularly Sky have missed him since he's left, was he could flip between the role of pundit and co-commentator, and there's not many people that can do that well. Arguments to be made that Gary Neville does that well. We'll get to that later on. But there isn't too many that can do it, you know, as well as Gray did. And I rate Andy Gray, but he really is the reason why there's a lot of football pundits on the TV today, and why the coverage is as in depth as it is now. Would you agree with that?
100%. I think the technology too, obviously, because I don't think personally that Gray was a great analyst of the game, but he tried, and it's because you could go back to replays, you could draw the little lines on the screen, and a lot of the time you would literally freeze a frame, and it'd be the guy who's playing the assist, he'd freeze it and go, and he's going to play it there, and he'd draw a line where the pass went, and it would be self-fulfilling prophecy when it came off. But you know, it was like the dawn of analysis with punditry, definitely. And again, I think as well with Keys and Gray, I never rated Keys, but he hosted it.
You let Gray go, didn't he?
It became a show, it became entertainment, and again, particularly like you say with the analysis point, it definitely started there. And I do again. I think a lot of it is the technology now, because we know more about stats than just possession, shots on target, corners, which I think was probably the focus back then.
XG is the one that's come in recently, isn't it? The expected goals.
Yeah, there's so much now.
To understand that.
Heat
Maybe
maps
you will,
and stuff like that. It's just, you know, it's so much more in depth now. There's a lot more tools there for pundits, but definitely, you know, Keys and Gray, you probably have to give them some credit.
Back in the day, I actually watched the Monday Night Football. Not a full rerun, but I just had a quick look at it as what it was like in the 90s, and I think it was Liverpool and Southampton or whatever, and Andy Gray was literally putting a video cassette into a machine in the day. You wouldn't see Gary Neville messing about with a video cassette these days, but like you said, the technology's evolved and allowed them to make the analysis that they do nowadays, and we've seen it flourish in particular with Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, who formed quite a good duo on Sky. Yeah. I know you're not Gary Neville's biggest fan, but the chemistry those two have sort of make Monday Night Football. You know, they make the show, don't they? And it was the same with Keys and Gray, as you said, but it's moved on to Neville and Carragher a little bit now.
Yeah, I think that's the second. It's almost like the second era, because Keys and Gray come in. You've got Super Sunday, the big game. They're doing the last word, like you say. They're covering all the big moments of the week, and I think now we have that with MNF, with Carragher and Neville. And it's just in more detail. There's more analysis, and to be fair to Andy Gray, the game's changed a lot. You know, when he played, he was a striker that headed it into the top corner, sort of thing, off crosses. The game's not like that anymore. Yeah, and that's not. I don't watch beIN Sports. He may well be a good pundit now, but these days, you know, we've got Neville and Carragher, and whatever you think of them, they played in the Premier League. You know, it's a completely different world, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah.
And understand, you know, how the dressing room worked. They understand there's probably a lot more emphasis on coaching, I would assume. So, you know, it's changed with that, and I think it's sort of like it was a big moment, wasn't it, when Keys and Gray were ousted for what they did. Yeah. And then it was Gary Neville came in off the back of that, if I remember rightly, with Ed Chamberlain. So completely, I want to talk about Ed Chamberlain too, because I think he's a big loss.
Yeah, I do as well. But by the same token, I think Dave Jones is a good host.
Yeah, he's okay.
I rate Jones.
Yeah, all the Sky ones are all right. To be fair, I watch Wales because I'm a guy from Lancashire, Merseyside. I'm born in Wales, so
he's from all over the place.
Yeah, I watch Wales, and they've got, I don't know what his name is. They've got a guy on there. He's good coverage. He gets a bit of conversation going. I think they all do a good job. But I will say, I do think. And I'm not tying this, I don't want to give Neville the excuse, but I do think the quality of the analysis on Monday Night Football, save for the addition of Carragher, is sort of nosedived. I do think, and particularly when Chamberlain was on, it was more fun to watch Neville and Kieron go at each other. Whereas I think now it's got to a point where it is just arguments back and forth. And again, I have no problem with that. I'll watch that all day. But I think it was a bit more tongue-in-cheek back then. I think now it's got a lot more serious. I saw it was a few weeks ago, wasn't it? Neville was, it got pretty aggressive.
Yeah, was it about Spurs? Or
Yeah.
What do you make of the Carragher incident of him, being brought back in? I don't want to go into too much detail, but was it right to bring him back, or?
Personally, I think so. I mean, he did the wrong thing. It's pretty, it was awful what he did. But I mean, at the end of the day, what you're gonna, he's a pundit.
He's going to go work for BT, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Keys and Gray, they tried to go to BT, didn't they? And Sky had all this extra evidence of, to put against him in terms of the sexism charges and stuff like that. But I mean, Carragher would have just gone somewhere else and he probably would have gone to be in sports. He'd just been cashing in. I don't know. You've got to live in a world where you accept like forgiveness is a thing, and I think Sky actually handled it well by putting him off for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's like cooled down a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, and they'd shown that they were dealing with it. I don't think that doing what he did, what's he going to do? Just never work again? If he's got something to offer, we've got to give a chance for people to redeem themselves. So.
I agree. He was apologetic. You could see it genuinely gutted him. He knew he'd made the mistake.
I only see him on TV, but you do get the impression he's actually an all right guy. What do you know? But
yeah, and you only see that 10-second clip on the video. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. You could tell the guy in the car was winding him up and proper going for it. And again, he'll have only put forward the minute, the seconds he wanted to.
Yeah, because why would you not?
Yeah, so exactly. Not to say that what Carragher did was right, but again, what you're going to do, banish him to.
To BT. Yeah. All Sky would actually do is lose out there. So
yeah,
it was probably the right thing. I've written down in my notes BT versus Sky. They're obviously not in. Well, they are in direct competition.
Yeah.
They are in direct competition. Who would you say has got the better pundits as of right now? I'll run through the lineups quickly. BT Sport generally have the likes of Glenn Hoddle, obviously wishing well in his recovery. Rio Ferdinand, Steve McManaman, Michael Owen, Scholes, Genus. They did, they had Gerard and Lampard before their ventures in the SPL. And then Sky have got the likes of Neville, Redknapp, Carragher, Graham Souness, Alex Scott more recently. How do you think their lineups compare? Who do you prefer watching? Whose product do you prefer watching based on the pundits?
I prefer watching Sky's overall product. That's not to say I prefer the pundits. I don't necessarily like either batch. I like a couple on each side, but I do think Sky have just got a much better. It sounds pathetic, but when BT, it's a big game and I've got that annoying noise that they have at the start, Together as One or whatever the singing is, it drives me mad. That doesn't belong. I don't like. I'm not a diva, but when I'm watching a big game on a Super Sunday and I've got a high energy song, it's better. It just works. It's better in the mood. So just even down to that, I think BT, they've definitely tried to become a bit more professional, because I know at the start it was all Savage and Fletch, wasn't it? Whatever they called it.
Yeah, Fletch and Sav, wasn't it?
Yeah. Again, fair play to them. They had a go. I just think they've definitely tried to make it more professional. Genus is the face now, and I've said to you before.
Do you rate Genus?
No,
I don't.
I don't like him at all. He does my head in, because I think the general public probably love him. He's a handsome enough guy. He talks nice. He's on all the right shows. He's always in the right place. But I don't rate him as a pundit. I don't like Genus really, but you can see that they've tried to go down that, easy on the eye look sort of thing on the screen where, it's quite eloquent and you can put sentences together, whereas, some of the others can't, to be fair.
Yeah.
He can sound like he knows what he's on about. I can't say enough. I much prefer watching, and it might just be because the biggest games still are on Sky for the most part, and that whole Super Sunday thing. But
subliminally, you'll prefer their product because of what they've got.
But that is their product. I much prefer that. the M&F thing is much better for me than, as you were saying, after the 5:30 kick-off. Where
yeah,
we've got the
Premier League Tonight, as they call it. It's gotten a lot of rave reviews with Jake Humphrey in the host chair.
Mm-hmm.
I actually rate Humphrey. I think he's a good host. I think he's very professional.
That's a point though we disagree on though. I think we've spoken about it before. I remember years ago when BBC had the F1. I think that was the year Button did well. I actually enjoyed Humphrey on there. I think I just don't like him on BT. It's a bit Partridge for me. And I think as well, particularly when Owen was back on it, Michael Owen was on it in the first few years, it was so cringe to watch the little bits of banter. And I think sometimes as well, he tries to... I'm trying to think of a specific example now, but there have been times where they'll have a player they'll be talking about the modern game or something like that, because they're trying to have that kind of conversation, give people an insight.
Yeah.
And he'll try and be on their level, and he'll try and say... And I get the intent's there, but it's just... I'm much more comfortable with someone like... Again, I go back to Ed Chamberlain or David Jones. They know they're not. They're like us. They're sitting in the chair as us, trying to... I don't want to
sort of give them the floor and step back, don't they?
Yeah, and I don't like that about Humphrey. No, I can't lie.
I know you flipping back to Sky just for a second. I know you had a couple of points to make on Graham Souness. Obviously, he's been a big critic of your boy Paul Pogba. Yeah. You make no secret of that. But you did have some points to make on Souness, so just give the listeners.
I've rated Souness for years. I was saying to you before we started recording, I really liked... it was, again, between 2008 2012, there were a few years where there would be a few teams that were on the cusp of being good, and he quite rightly called it and just said that there's nothing in that team. I remember Arsenal specifically, when I think they had like an 8-point gap at the top, and he just called it from day one. They will not see it out. They haven't got a championship winning team. They had no experience. There was no grit in the midfield. He called it as he saw it, and I saw it the same way. And inevitably, Arsenal, there was no leadership in the team. They just crumbled under the pressure. And I think there are, again, the old school things I think he still gets right now. But I think that being his biggest strength is also his biggest weakness, because I think particularly when you were talking about Pogba, I understand anyone who would criticise Pogba, because he's not... I understand why people wouldn't see some of the positive impact he can have on the pitch.
Because it's not blatantly obvious to the eye.
Yeah, and some of his mistakes are, the Chelsea goal, he lost his man. The Wolves game, he gave the ball up in the middle of the pitch. It's obvious when he makes a mistake. It's not always obvious. I think sometimes, I've said this before, Paul Pogba is not Steven Gerrard. He's more Paul Scholes. He's more subtle than that. I think that he has got qualities where he can score from distance. He can play a 60-yard pass. He can dart up the pitch and his pace. He can hold the ball. He's got all these qualities, but I still think at his heart he's a more subtle player. Where I just think he's smarter than that. I think he knows sometimes where to play the pass in order to build an attack.
So that's where the Souness criticism comes.
Yeah, and that's my thing with Souness. I think sometimes. I remember particularly after the City game at the Etihad, where Pogba turned the game around. We pulled it back to 2-2 after Souness had laid into him at half time. And after the game, Souness was saying, well, why does he do this every week? And he started to allude to his physical attributes, basically saying he's a big lad. And that he basically just wants to see him go up and do basically what he wants to see him do, which is what Fellaini does. I don't want to see Pogba doing that, because you pay £90 million for a player that can build play up. And
we don't want his physicality. We want his ball playing.
And that's my biggest criticism. I think sometimes he's definitely... Pogba is in his head. Every week he covers a United game. Yeah, he's obsessed with him. And he moves away and takes a step back when Pogba does well. The minute Pogba has a bad game, he jumps on it.
Sure, and I think that's because it's Souness' position as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's drawn his line in the sand and he's going to stand by it. And fair enough, but for me, that's my biggest criticism, is I think sometimes his view of the game is a bit dated. But he definitely is good at, in a lot of other respects. And I do think that he's actually a really good pundit. He's been right on quite a lot, I think, over the years. And I think fair play to him. I actually, he's one of the better ones, to be fair, I think, Souness. That aside.
So, if you had to pick a dream lineup of pundits, say we've got a presenter and 4 pundits, who makes the cut? Current crop.
Carragher. I do like Carragher. I don't always agree with him, but I think he makes points based on evidence, and he'll back up what he's saying. Neville did do that when he first started, but I think now it's just got to a point where he's a bit of a parody of himself. So Neville would just annoy me. But maybe I like that. I don't know. I'd probably have to watch it though, wouldn't you? Yeah, no, it is part of the thing. The punditry, you are watching it to be either
annoyed or in agreement.
You say he's right, or he's wrong, and you shout at the screen. Yeah, so it's double-edged sword. So I'd have him. I'd have Rio, because I do think Rio's really good. I think he's really good at. It's not typical you'd say a defender is actually good at analysing what's going on at the top end of the pitch, and I think he's really good sometimes at talking about what an attacker does well.
He used to be a striker though, didn't he?
Well, yeah, there's that, and I think as well what he's sometimes good at is talking about, and Neville does it a lot too, to be fair, but he'll talk about what he didn't like playing against and what kind of players gave him trouble. And I think, again, that could become dated, but I do think that he's good at that, and he's particularly good with the defensive side of things, and the leadership and the personality side of things. He was a big character in a really successful team. I think he offers that. But to be honest, I'm struggling after that, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know who I would pick other than... I think they'd probably be my 3, yeah. And it would be...
Roy
if
Keane?
I could have... I love Roy Keane, but I think as much as I'd enjoy Roy Keane, I think what would bother me is Twitter after it. So it'd all happen, and I'd go on Twitter, and everyone would just be slagging him off, or calling it right because he said something really simple.
Lee Dixon would be your 4th.
I like Lee Dixon a lot. I've not seen him for years, but he was one of the ones where he used to be on Match of the Day, and later when he did some ITV coverage, maybe for a World Cup or something, I think he's really good at covering what a fullback does. Even I remember, years ago when the game changed and Danny Halves came on the scene, it was all overlapping, attacking, getting forward. He was really good at talking about what was going on in the mind of a defensive fullback at that point, and what the instruction was going forward. And I think he's an underrated pundit. Probably he's gone, maybe because he's not sexy enough, to be honest. Maybe he's not young and sexy enough. I don't know, but I did like Dixon back in the day, to be honest.
So that's your 4.
I think, though, to be fair, if we're going to talk about punditry, it's got to be said that I think that we've gone from the entertainment and analysis for Keys and Gray to pure analysis, to the point where it's like more interesting and fun with Neville. And I think now that they've come...
I think interesting.
I do too. I think, though, that it's now got to a point where Neville has become a bit of a parody of himself, in my opinion. I've said that before on this podcast, I've said it 100 times before. I just think that it was a risky move bringing him and Carragher in, and I think the Chamberlain balanced it quite well. I think what's happened now is it's got to a point where I think for a pundit to feel like they're making a point, they have to be negative. It has to be identifying a problem. Redknapp, I don't like Jamie Redknapp, but he'll watch a game and he'll talk about what someone does that's good, and it is easy, but it is a bit of a breath of fresh air when he does it sometimes.
That's the corner flag there, circle.
He's an embarrassment and he's bad, but at least he's like sometimes talking about what's been done well. Whereas
I know what you mean.
I think they're all in competition sometimes to point out the flaw in a player or in a system, to the point where they're all looking for stuff.
It makes for better headlines, though, doesn't it? Like, if you look at the media, you wouldn't ever get a headline going, Pogba played well.
No, I hear
Pogba
that.
cost United points or whatever.
Gray did it, though. Gray would talk about it quite a lot. Gray would talk about big strikers or big players that were doing things well, or he was obsessed with Gerrard back in the day. You would talk about these things, and I think there's an entertainment value to that, and I think there is still a value to that, whereas I think now it's got to a point where they're all fighting to see the flaw first, or why this won't work, or why that won't work. And I think they're all, to be honest, getting a bit ahead of themselves, because whenever we've seen them go into management, particularly Neville, it's not worked out.
Yeah,
and so
I agree.
Him doing that sort of, it lifts the curtain a bit for me. And now looking at it, and I'm thinking, I'm looking at him thinking, is what he's saying definitely right now?
I'll take your point, but what I'd say about Neville is, it was. I'm not defending him. Obviously, didn't go very well at Valencia, but it was a tough first job. They didn't speak much English at all, the team. It was difficult for him to get his point across. He didn't have the greatest amount of time to try and turn it around. I'm not defending it, and obviously it didn't go very well, but I don't know if it was a true reflection on his knowledge of the game. What I've always liked about Neville is, as a fan and as somebody who... I know a little bit about the game. I could talk about it as we're doing right now, but I take your point about him changing his punditry style, but back 3-4 years ago, he used to tell me stuff about the game that I wouldn't notice on my own.
I agree. Yeah, he did that. Yeah.
There was a particular incident, and I'll never forget it. It was City Arsenal game, and for about 5 minutes, he was saying something like, they're getting in down this left side, the fullback's in trouble, and a minute or two later, the fullback gave away a penalty.
Yeah.
And that sort of resonated with me, and I was thinking, yeah, that's what I want from a pundit. I want somebody to tell me what I can't see, educate me.
But I feel like he looks to do that now to a point where it's like detrimental. Particularly with me on the co-commentary, he'll be covering a game and he'll see something he doesn't quite like, and I now think to a point where it's sometimes actually something he just doesn't understand, and he'll call it out and he'll focus on it, and I remember the Phil Jones thing where he got the red card against West Ham, and so Phil Jones gets sent off, or he didn't get sent off, I can't remember, it was a horrific tackle. Referee did or didn't make the right call, I can't remember the exact
No, he didn't get sent off.
Right, okay, he should have.
Yeah, he should, yeah.
For about 2 months after that game, Neville...
It was my name, wasn't it? Because he was under scrutiny for it.
Every time the referee was on a game, Neville was covering that game. Oh, he's thinking back to that Phil Jones position. It's bollocks. I'm not convinced that every decision was... But he was adamant about it, and I think sometimes... I've seen him do this thing where... And he gets it right sometimes, but he'll talk about the full-back or this player in midfield losing his man, something like that. And again, that is what you want, but he gets fixated on things sometimes to a point where it's a problem. And I think, for me to summarise on Neville... and it is just an excuse for me to talk about Martial. My problem with Neville is the first few years he was pure, analytical, he came at it and he was giving me insights to the game, like you were saying, that I didn't see before. Whereas now, I just feel like he's talking about what he wants to see to the point where he's just getting caught up in narratives and stuff like that. And I think the Martial-Rashford thing is a really good example of that, because quite recently... After Martial, I think it might be the 2 goals he got against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, Neville, in his analysis on MNF, when he had to talk about him positively, because he's resisted it for a long time, when he's had opportunities to praise Martial, he went over, he covered a few highlights and said that he wants to see Martial make this run or make that run. If he wants to score 20 goals a year, he's got to make that run. He's got to be... I'm a fullback, I'm looking at him out there. Martial, I'm absolutely convinced, is told to not make the run, to hold the line, stretch the pitch, stay on side, let the ball come out to you, then you come out and you're committing a defender. I'm convinced Mourinho tells him that. I don't know. But Martial's still scoring goals despite that. Again, he's on a glut at the minute, but this is not new. Martial gets goals and assists when he plays minutes. It's just a fact. And it came back to, after analysing Martial and showing these clips of him not making these runs and admitting he doesn't get it, he then goes on to show the minutes versus his goal and assist output, and then he goes, oh, I don't get it. He's looking at a table and Martial's right up there with the top players, the players that he's talking about all the time. And I'm thinking, the new Gary Neville that was on the block would have called that from the get-go. He wouldn't have sat there and gone, I don't get it. He'd have looked into it, he'd have analysed it. But he didn't on this one, and it's because it didn't fit his narrative of... He was happy for Rashford to be getting all the minutes because he was a homegrown English talent. And I go back to a tweet, I'm not going to pull it up, but he went back to... Someone tweeted him, why prefer Rashford over Martial? And he simply said, because Martial cost 50 million. But I'm watching United every week, and I can see... I like Rashford a lot, but there's a clear difference in the quality between those two players. And for 2 years, it's frustrated me watching him, because he'll completely rub over anything Martial does. And I'm using Martial as an example. There are plenty of others. And I don't get it. I don't get why he's gone down this route where he's getting into a point where he's arguing all the time about his weird little things. And the thing with United as well, I know we did the United thing at the start. The thing with United, where he's obsessed with this thing of sticking with the manager and the traditions of the club and getting crosses into the box and the wing players got to go touch get chalk on the boots. It's infuriating for me because the game's moved on. It's a completely different era. We stuck with Ferguson because he was the best manager of all time. We didn't stick with him because it was a United tradition. We sat loads of players before him, managers before him. And I just don't get why he can't get that. I can't watch him cover a United game now and enjoy it. He drives me mad because he just gets obsessed with these little things. And then Souness had his pants down after the City game, and he said to him, is this manager getting the best out of this squad? And Neville goes, I don't know. Of course he knows. He's not an idiot. Of course he knows. But he couldn't just say, no, he isn't fair enough. It doesn't suit his agenda. It drives me mad.
It's interesting. No, excuse me. It's very interesting what you're saying. I don't completely agree, but that's football, isn't it? Nobody's going to completely, and we never agree. No. I get what you're saying, 100%. I'm a Neville fan. I like what he does, but I can take your point, and I do agree with bits of what you said. We're probably going to wrap it there, if that's all right. I think we've covered everything on our list of agenda. Kieron, thank you very much for taking the time out tonight to talk to us on A Game of Two Halves. We hope you've enjoyed both halves, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming along tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you to you at home for listening to this podcast, and like I said about Kieron, we hope you've enjoyed both halves, and for sticking with us. As we said earlier on in the programme, there will be opportunities down the line, hopefully, for you guys to pick what you want to listen to. And if you have an opinion on what we've talked about tonight, whether it be the United stuff up front or the art of the pundit in the second half of the show, please do tweet us or get in touch with us via Instagram or Facebook. We're Zip Sports Media on all of the social media outputs, so do get involved if that is your if that's your preference, if that's what you want to do. So we'll be back next week with more of the same, different topics to talk about, but thanks for tuning into this episode, and we'll hopefully see you down the road.